Welcome to the Awesomers.com podcast. If you love to learn, and if you're motivated to expand your mind, and heck, if you desire to break through those traditional paradigms and find your own version of success, you are in the right place. Awesomers around the world are on a journey to improve their lives and the lives of those around them. We believe in paying it forward, and we fundamentally try to live up to the great Zig Ziglar quote, where he said, "You can have everything in your life you want if you help enough other people get what they want." It doesn't matter where you came from, it only matters where you're going. My name is Steve Simonson, and I hope you will join me on this awesomer journey.
If you're launching a new product manufactured in China, you will need professional, high-resolution, Amazon-ready photographs. Because Simo Global has a team of professionals in China, you will oftentimes receive your listings photographs before your product even leaves the country. This streamlined process will save you the time, money, and energy needed to concentrate on marketing and other creative content strategies before your item is in stock and ready for sale. Visit simoglobal.com to learn more, because a picture should be worth 1,000 keywords.
Hey everybody, it's me, Steve Simonson, and we're back again for another Awesomers.com podcast. And guess what? Today's episode is number 60. That's podcast episode number 60. I can hardly believe it. All you have to do is go to awesomers.com/60 to find today's show notes, relevant details, and things like that, maybe links that we talk about along the way. Although today, mostly, I'm going to be talking about a book, because today is a Book of the Week episode. But before we dive into that, I want to just comment that we're a third of the way through the commitment that I made to record 180 daily episodes. So when I started in awesomers.com/1, that's our first episode, I laid out our vision, mission, and values, and I committed that, hey, listen, I'm going to record 180 episodes. That's a lot of value that I'm trying to deliver to you, and I'm going to do that regardless if anybody listens or not, to be honest. Because once I make that commitment and I'm accountable to it, especially publicly, there's no way I'm getting out of it. And so as of today, as of this recording, I'm already a third of the way there. And I hope that you guys are getting value. And I hope that's something that you'll take a minute and go leave us a review if you haven't already. Believe it or not, when I read those, luckily we've been blessed with positive reviews thus far. I'm sure I'll get a couple trolls that are beating me down at some point. But it's such a positive reinforcement for me and an encouragement for me to know that the time is worthwhile, because I'm putting an awful lot of time into this stuff because I care so much and love entrepreneurs and I love awesomers who are breaking that paradigm of normal. You don't have to just be an entrepreneur. Anything that you're doing to create and to change and to be different and make the world a better place, then I'm on your team. You're an awesomer for sure. And we're going to dive into today's Awesomers Book of the Week episode right now. And what I want to remind people is that today's episode is about something very important, and it's about kind of the morning routine. And so the book, The Miracle Morning, is written by Hal Elrod, and he is a very inspiring guy. His kind of vision, his journey is, I would say, extraordinary, and it's certainly not something that most people go through. If you're not familiar, the book will tell you a little bit about his journey. But, basically when he was 20 years old, he was in a head-on car accident at this very, very young age. And this was a spectacularly, disastrous crash. And he was literally dead for 6 whole minutes. He broke something like 22 bones, and he was in intensive care. And really, he was told by doctors during that whole time that he would never walk again. So, here's a guy who died and came back to life somehow, who has all of these, injuries and brain damage kind of stuff, all kinds of things. And the brightest and best in the room are like, hey, buckle up. You are probably not going to be able to walk again in the future. But instead of Hal taking that as, his chance to become a victim, he's like, no, I reject that. I'm not going to listen, and I'm going to do something about this, and I'm just going to figure it out. Hal's gone on to become not just a world-class speaker and author and some of the motivation stuff that you may have run across or will certainly see as a result of, just having the book in your hands, but he's also been an ultra-marathoner, right? Not only did he learn how to walk and got past all of that physical therapy, he's gone on to run and to marathon and do things that most of us with perfectly functioning legs and never having an accident have not bothered to embark upon. So I find his story extraordinarily inspiring. And one of my favorite movies is called the movie Rudy, and it's based on Rudy Ruettiger. And if you haven't ever seen it, I definitely recommend it. It's a even if you don't care for sports, it's a very inspiring and touching movie. And if you want to see me choke up, maybe pull a couple tears out, that's a good movie to kind of push that envelope. By the way, so here's what Rudy says on the back of the book. He says, "The miracle morning is literally the one thing that will make an immediate and profound change in any or every area of your life. If you really want your life to improve, read this book immediately." And that was Rudy Ruettiger who inspired that movie. And so, the philosophical question that Hal asks on the back of the book is something very simple. What if you could miraculously wake up tomorrow and any or every area of your life was transformed? What would be different? Would you be happier? Would you be healthier, more successful, in better shape? Would you have more energy, less stress, more money? Significantly better personal and professional relationships, possibly? Which of your problems would be solved? And Hal goes on to say that the not-so-obvious secret guaranteed to transform your life is within this book. And I'll tell you, it's not a very thick book. It's a pretty simple read, and it's quite straightforward, but I do really honestly believe it can have a significant impact on your life if you will bother to read it and then put into practice the types of things that he talks about. And so I want to talk about the broad strokes of that philosophy right now. So Hal has an acronym that he calls SAVERS, SAVERS. And SAVERS is just our mechanism to learn the 6 things that we need to focus on each and every morning. And by the way, before people squinch up and go, "Oh, I already am a busy person, I don't have time for this," you can do all 6 of these things in just 1 hour every morning. And I'll talk a little bit more about that as we dive in. So what does SAVERS stand for? The first is silence, right? This is just the very beginning of the process. The next comes up the A, which is affirmations, right? Next you pop into visualization, right? This is kind of seeing where you're going. And then you work in some exercise. And don't get nuts. This is not, you don't have to go run a marathon like Hal. It's just something you could do and complete in 10 minutes. And then you move into reading. And you finally get into scribing, which is probably, a tortured way to make sure that the SAVERS acronym works. But it does work. Scribing, meaning journaling or writing, is part of that process as well. So here's the foundation. If you spend 1 hour a day, 10 minutes on each of these things, you can change your life. And Hal based this on studying all the successful people, and he noticed that all the successful people did at least one of these. And so Hal's logic was, if one is good, let's just do them all. I've found this common thread through all of these, high performers and extraordinarily achieving people. So let's just do each of these, and let's do them in a nice, easy, Scooby snack-sized way, right? 10 minutes on each of these. And I think that's a really important point. And I don't want you to forget that just an hour a day can transform your life with these, not so obvious, but very important methodologies. And I'm going to share more of those details, but we're going to do a little bit more of that right after this break.
Empower. The name says it all. Connecting e-commerce entrepreneurs with great people, ideas, systems, and the services needed to stay business dynamic and to grow. Empowery is a network, a cooperative venture of tools and resources to make you better at what you do, because we love what you do. We are you. Visit empowery.com to learn more.
Okay, we're back, everybody, and we're going to go through kind of the acronym of SAVERS that we just talked about in a little more detail, taking just a look at each one of the points. So the first letter of SAVERS, of course, is S for silence. Now, what does silence mean in this context? It's focused on the things that you could probably deduce, like meditation, prayer, breathing, whichever of those methodologies you prefer, one or more or all. The purpose is to quiet your mind, right? It's just as my empathy coach and others would talk about, you got all this activity up in your mind. You got to kind of just relax and calm down and let the revolutions that are, the spinning wheel, so to speak, kind of slow down and relax. There's an old Kevin Costner movie where he was a pitcher. I forget the name of it. But when he was on the mound, you'd hear the crowd and the crowd's roaring and, people are, heckling him and so on and so forth. And at one point he would just stop and he'd take a deep breath and he would say, clear the mechanism, right? And that, within the movie context, then everything, the external world was shut out and it was quiet. It was silent. And then he could get down to his business of throwing the pitch. And I think it's a good metaphor. It's a good thing for us to learn from, to just take that moment, 10 minutes a day, and figure out, again, it doesn't matter if it's prayer or breathing exercises or just simple meditation. And one of the things I love about the book, The Miracle Morning, is that Hal will give you very clear methods of how you meditate. Again, I'm not the strongest swimmer, so when I start thinking about, I hear people talking about meditation, but I don't have a yoga mat and I don't know any chakras or mantras or things I'm supposed to repeat. I don't even know what I'm supposed to do. When people say meditation to me, I start to get nervous and sometimes even check out because I don't know what I'm doing. But within the Miracle Morning, they have some very clear meditation methods. And it's like, hey, just do this. And boy, that's pretty instructive for a guy like me. So, one of the things I love about this book is they have a lot of links inside that can take you to find things like meditations and instructions on how to get this thing done. Now, the why should be obvious enough, right? We want to just relax and kind of take it down a notch and then focus on what we have ahead of us without, kind of the stress and the pressure and the noise. So S for silence is the first in our process of getting through the Savers methodology. So the next is affirmations. Now, a lot of people talk about affirmations, and the simple definition are encouraging words you tell to yourself. But I want to remind people that affirmations really are an important part of the process. And, I started, when I read this book in 2015, I didn't know any affirmations. It feels kind of weird to go, hey, you're really great. It reminds me of that Stuart Smalley SNL skit from many years ago. You're great. You're really good, and people like you. Darn it, And it's kind of funny, but it makes you feel a little self-conscious because I don't really know how affirmations work. But just like in the prior section, just go to the book and there's a link, and it'll give you a sample affirmation. Now, the audio listeners can't see this, but I'm holding up the sample affirmations page that I printed when I got this book in August 20th of 2015. So about 3 years ago, just over 3 years ago. And this page, which I printed out, and I keep it with me in my travel and in my bathroom pack. So my bathroom pack, I've got like the little, the little kit, it's got all the little bathroom supplies and things. And I use that both at home and I use it on the road because it's got all my stuff in it. And I stuff the affirmations into that kit and it travels with me. And I can't say that I've read it every single day, but more times than not I will read it. And just the very simplest, affirmations printed on here are helpful. And again, in some ways I feel a little self-conscious, or I did at least in the beginning, but not now. It's kind of, just kind of part of the methodology. And I've talked about this before, but I don't want people to forget. You can do negative self-talk, and that will have an impact on your brain. And, spoiler alert, it won't be positive. It'll be negative. Or you can do positive affirmations, and those over time will, in fact, have a positive effect. So I'm going to read just the first sample affirmation. And believe it or not, again, you can't really see this, in the audio section, but this thing is tattered, and, some of the words are even rubbed out. But I'm going to read you the first paragraph to give you a sample affirmation that the book provides to you. And it starts out, and the instructions say, read these powerful affirmations every day to take yourself to the next level. And by the way, they recommend these in morning and night. I've always found the night to be too much of a added process, so I do them in the morning only. So the first one is, first, I'm just as worthy, deserving, and capable of achieving extraordinary levels of success and all of my goals as any other person on earth. and that the only thing that separates me from those at the top is my level of commitment. From this moment on, I'm 100% committed to becoming the person I need to be through daily personal development and living with daily discipline to attract, create, and sustain the levels of success that I truly want and deserve in my life, right? And it's quite simple. And by the way, it goes all the way through 5 different affirmations. It's simple yet highly, highly effective. And, I just want you to know that I practice what I preach. This same piece of paper has been with me for over 3 years and continues to go with me. And if I can remember, I will scan a copy of that and put it up on the website at awesomers.com/ whatever this episode is. I forgot the episode number, everybody. But I said it at the top of the show, and I'll say it again at the bottom of the show. So I think it's episode 60, but don't quote me on that. Make sure you listen to the top and the bottom of the show. So affirmations are the second part. Don't forget them. They are important. Let's talk about visualizations. So the simple kind of definition of this would be, imagine the future. But visualizations go far beyond that. And I highly encourage you to, and Hal within the book, so a lot of this instruction is kind of me, reading the book and repeating back or synthesizing down the message to how I took it. But I think the book tells you that to get into a step-by-step plan to visualize your goal, right? So first of all, visualize what you want that ultimate goal to be, right? And maybe it's visualizing yourself on a stage speaking to a crowd, or maybe it's you ringing the public bell to take your company into the public markets, on Wall Street. Perhaps it's just you buying a new car, or maybe it's seeing your kids off to college. Maybe it's buying that dream house. Whatever it is, start with that goal and visualize it and think about it. And imagine, how happy you will be with the accomplishment. Not the stuff. If you're like, I imagine a Ferrari. The Ferrari is not what makes you happy, believe it or not. It's the achievement of the goal. It's the knowing that you are able to push yourself and accomplish that goal. The Ferrari is just a symbol of the achievement. So visualize that future and think about, how happy and how accomplished you'll feel. And then think about it step by step. Those steps, visualize those so that you can figure out what it'll take you to get to that goal. So, if you're thinking about, gosh, I want to buy this dream house. All right, so now you got to back up the steps. Well, how much is that house? Well, it's, whatever, $1 million. And so you say, well, how much money do I have? I have zero. All right, so one of those steps is going to be, how do I earn some money? And then you start saying, well, I'm going to design a product, or I'm going to build a training course, or I'm going to, launch a service business, or, whatever. I'm going to open a muffin shop. It doesn't matter, whatever you're planning. And then you say, okay, now I see that happening. Now, how am I, going to take the next step, which is, making that business or that enterprise produce capital, so it throws off free cash flow so that you can start saving money towards your house. And then maybe you realize, gosh, to buy a house that's worth $1 million, all I need is, maybe a couple $100,000 down, and then I'm good to go. Good credit, couple $100,000 down, 20%. You could even do it for less than that, by the way. And you start realizing, gosh, that's not that hard. Any of us can accumulate a couple $100,000 if we set our minds to it. So by visualizing these things, and, I think it is helpful to look at, some of the people around you, but I want to just caution you. When you see the Facebook ads and the guy standing around with a bunch of hot chicks and, 16 different supercars, or you see, the gal who's jet setting off to Europe again, and, she barely had time to stay in New York for the Met Ball. She's got to get back to Paris, right? Let's not get caught up in these kind of, they're just silly notions. Too often in the Instagram, Facebook world, people are putting up, private jets and, limousines and, champagne and caviar every day for lunch, breakfast, lunch, dinner. This is silliness. I definitely can tell you stuff is not the secret. So when you're visualizing, make sure you do it in a constructive and positive way, not just a greed-filled, silly way. Don't fill your world with greed. We can accumulate, but we accumulate through earning our stuff. That's what awesomers do. We don't, try to be greedy, and if somebody will give me $1,000, I'm going to take that $1,000 and move on with my life regardless of the value I provided. That's not how we think. We think long term. So visualize in a positive way. I went on a little bit of a tangent, a little bit of a rant there. My apologies. So getting back to this very important book, The Miracle Morning, the next letter in the Savers process is exercise. Now, as I said earlier, you don't have to be like Hal, our very esteemed author, and run out and run a marathon and be an ultra marathoner. You don't even have to be a power lifter or anything crazy. Just do something. Just move. Do something to get that blood moving. Get the oxygen flowing through the bloodstream. It feeds your brain. It feeds your body. And just doing that movement of 10 minutes can change your physiology, your chemistry, your happiness level. Believe it or not, all of these things, all you have to do is just spend 10 minutes a day. And that can be the difference between, kind of your life and where you are at right now. And assuming you want to change it or make it better, this can be extraordinarily powerful. And don't forget that in just 60 minutes, you can make all of this happen. One other note that I haven't touched on, I want to do it really quick before we jump to this break. This only takes 1 hour, but I think Hal is pushing you to wake up 1 hour earlier. Don't put it into your normal schedule. Just make a commitment to wake up 1 hour earlier than you already do today. So if you're waking up at 6 a.m., wake up at 5 a.m. and do this. If you're waking up at 8 a.m., wake up at 7 a.m. You could do the math. The point is, a lot of people, they get really pumped up about this, and they're like, I love this Miracle Morning. I'm going to do this. And I'm kind of a night owl, so I've been waking up at 9 a.m., and now I'm going to wake up at 5 a.m. And as much as I applaud that notion, and that idea may be a good one, it may be too much too fast. So my advice is start with just that extra hour earlier, and don't try to, jump to perfection. A good friend of mine, Evan Hackle, talks about, perfect is the enemy of good, right? If you try to make something perfect, you'll never get good at it, because you'll find that feasibility is not super high. So I want you to think about that idea. 60 minutes, just wake up 1 hour earlier, and we're going to take a quick break, and we're going to be right back, and you're not going to want to miss the rest of this acronym.
Hey Amazon Marketplace professionals, this is Parsimony ERP, and we get one question over and over. Can you please tell me exactly what Parsimony does? Well, we'll try, but this is only a 30-second spot, so we're going to have to hurry. Connect to your Seller Central account and pull all the new orders. Enter the orders with all customer data. Enter all of the Amazon fees and charges. Store them at the item level. Generate profit and loss reports at the SKU level. Automatically generate income statements. Handle multiple companies. Handle multiple brands. Handle multiple currencies. Facilitate budgets and forecasts. Store all customer interactions in a sophisticated CRM system. Manage your supply chain. Project and task management. Maintain an audit log. Hey, you get it. That's Parsimony, PARSIMONY.com. Parsimony.com. We've got that.
Okay, we're back, everybody, and now we are down to the last couple letters of the SAVERS acronym. And R stands for reading. So reading is where you put some positive inputs from external sources, right, and from intelligent sources. So you can feed your mind through, books. They could be audiobooks. They could be blog posts. They could be podcasts. Hey, there's a little self-interested plug. So you can feed yourself in lots of different ways, but reading, and again, I want people to know that reading really helps, it breaks the patterns of normal, because it fires off synapses in your brain that you may not be using every day. When you run across a new idea in a book, that may fire synapses in your brain. That pathway may not have been active in your brain for some time. The more of those things firing off, the healthier your brain is, the more you're learning, the more articulate you become, and the better off I think that your attitude towards learning and life becomes. And I know that sounds like a lot to get out of just something as simple as reading, but it is a true story. And when I was a kid, I learned computer programming in junior high, and one of the first things we learned was the acronym GIGO. And for those experienced people in the computer world might know that GIGO means garbage in, garbage out. So the point of having this 10-minute session is instead of putting garbage in, put good stuff in. Let's put positive inputs. Because if you put garbage in, you should only expect to get garbage out. And what are the types of garbage I'm talking about? And this even falls under reading. I think any of the salacious tabloids, including, by the way, a lot of the mainline press, like I don't bother following the news. I want to stay in touch with what's important to my business, but I'm not going to follow along with the politics, tragedy du jour. I don't care. It's not going to make an impact in my day-to-day life. And I would just encourage you not to put the garbage in. And if you do, don't expect anything but garbage out. But if you take time and you read and you follow along with these Book of the Week episodes, you listen and learn from other great podcasts and authors and audiobooks and the like, you're much, much higher chance of having positive results from that stuff. It really, really is important. Don't bother wasting all your time. We all love watching cat videos, but really after the second hour of cat videos, maybe you should put some time into learning, right? And again, I'm no different than anybody else. I'll watch a good run of cat videos, especially when I'm bored or feel like I'm burning out a little bit. I gotta get me some funny cat videos, or maybe some comedy clips or whatever, or even just binge watch Netflix for a while. But there's a time and a place for all of that, and I'm saying part of the Miracle Morning is to take that 10 minutes a day and commit it to reading as one of your points in your Savers methodology. So then we're down now to the final letter, which is the S in Savers, and that stands for scribing. And as we alluded to earlier, that just means you're going to do some journaling. You're going to do some writing. And I really want to say that writing is one of the best ways to synthesize and process your thoughts. So to write something down, if you want to say, well, what I learned from yesterday was, and you just write down, one paragraph, maybe it's 3 sentences or 4 sentences, but to be able to synthesize it down to core lessons and perhaps even action steps after that, it requires you to process those thoughts, and it requires you then to kind of synthesize that message down. Now here's the great part. The more of a habit you get into doing this every day, when you start to experience things throughout the day, you're going to be like, oh, when I write this tomorrow in my journal or tonight in my journal, whatever it is, I'm going to write this down in this way because that's the core lesson I learned. It really will change how your brain functions in many ways. I know this sounds crazy and simple, but it really does work. And by the way, the process of reflection, just the simple act of reflecting on the prior day's activities or what's before you, even this very day, that can help you accelerate your learning and your growth. I personally believe, and I think that the book The Miracle Morning supports this philosophy, that you will understand yourself more and in a more deep and thorough and comprehensive way, but you'll also extend your ability to communicate with others as a result of kind of writing down and journaling each and every day. So again, you only have to do that for 10 lousy minutes. That's pretty simple. And each of these prior steps, the Savers methodology, all you have to do is spend just 10 minutes a day on each one. And that makes kind of a pretty active hour for you, but pretty simple too, because you're not going to get sick of any of those in just simple 10 minutes. And I highly recommend, if when you're first starting out, it's a little tougher, maybe get yourself an egg timer or something, and just set 10 and just go through Savers and get them all done. And this is a really predictable situation. So even as I talk about this, if you're excited about it, kudos to you, and I want you to maintain that enthusiasm. But here's how things actually work, and this is part of the book itself. Hal talks about this concept of the 30-day habit mastery strategy. So he actually gives you the instructions, how to implement this over the course of 30 days and how to make it become a habit. So that's something that's like, this is not a chore. This is not something new. This is something I do every day because it's part of my habits, and I like it, by the way. And by the way, that will happen. But here's what happens in days 1 through 10. That's called phase 1, the unbearable phase. So the first 10 days of implementing any new habit or ridding yourself of any old habit can feel almost unbearable. That's Hal's words. Although the first few days can be easy and even exciting because it's something new, the newness wears off pretty quick, and then reality sets in. And then it's painful. It's not fun anymore. And so I'm telling you this because I want you to be prepared for this concept that the first 10 days that have the potential to be, and they certainly were in my case, unbearable. Okay? Now the next 10 days, 11 through 20, you go into phase 2. And you're probably waiting for the rainbows and unicorns to fly out now, but this is the uncomfortable stage. So we're not into rainbows and unicorns yet. This is when you have gotten through the first 10 days, which are the most difficult. Then you get to the next 10-day phase, which are described as considerably easier, but still you're outside of your comfort zone. So you still have to focus on discipline. You have to focus on commitment, right? Because this is the point where it's like, yeah, I get it. It's not as miserable as it was, the first 10 days, but am I getting anything out of this? Is this worth my time? You really start to second guess yourself, or it has the potential to. And the advice from Hal is stay committed. You've already gone from unbearable to uncomfortable. Why not just, pop into the next phase and find out what that's like? And so finally in days 21 to 30, and ideally beyond, you are into phase 3, which Hal calls unstoppable, right? When you enter the final 10 days, that home stretch of establishing the habit, not the home stretch of doing the process, but just the home stretch of, getting that habit to become ingrained as part of your process, almost everybody, who gets this far will get, to the payoff pitch. Now, adhering to the popular advice that it takes 21 days to form a habit, a lot of people will kind of pop out by then. They're like, hey, I've already been doing this 21 days, so I'm just going to relax a little bit on the discipline. So this is really where you don't want to stop and where the transformation happens. Your new habit becomes part of your identity. You may find yourself running around talking about the miracle morning. You may even, pull out and show people, hey, here's my affirmations. Do you want to copy the ones that I'm using, or do you want to use the samples from the book? And so all of this is where you become unstoppable, and you start to get excited about it. And really, you'll start to see and feel the benefits. But this is an area where sometimes people get a little too overconfident. They pat themselves on the back, once they hit that day 21, 22, 23, and they're like, hey, I'm pretty good. I've got the positive reinforcement I need. And then you kind of back off just a little bit. And that's the dangerous thing. So I want everybody to remember that to become unstoppable, you really can't stop. You have to remain committed and push through to that final phase. So that's the Savers process. That is, essentially what Hal talks about as your key acronym to helping you through the process. This book is a really good book. It's an easy read. This is probably less than a couple hours. But within the book, there are a bunch of how-tos, a bunch of processes and procedures, and even more links that help you go out and find examples and engage with the Miracle Morning community. So I really enjoy this book. I certainly recommend it. You could maybe be able to tell I'm passionate about it, and I think it's important for people to check out and even adopt if they will. And I reinforce that, this in fact was episode number 60. I'm sorry I didn't remember in the middle there. And so all you have to do is go to awesomers.com/60 to see show notes and a transcript and so forth. And if I can scan my affirmations, I'll put it on that page too, just so you can see how ratty and beat up it is. But, it's over 3 years with just a piece of printer paper and laser printed, and I still use that thing, day to day. So I hope you've enjoyed this Book of the Week episode. I thank you again for listening, and I really do encourage you guys to engage with the website, leave us a review, get on the Facebook, tell us how we're doing. I know I called it the Facebook because I'm old, and next thing I'm going to tell you, get off my lawn, you kids. But I love this podcast. I hope it's helping you. And honestly, the only way I'll know that if the work and the energy we're putting into it is worth it is if you tell us. So thank you for your time listening, and thank you for any feedback that you're able to help us with. Well, we've done it again, everybody. We have another episode of the Awesomers podcast ready for the world. Thank you for joining us, and we hope that you've enjoyed our program today. Now is a good time to take a moment to subscribe, like, and share this podcast. Heck, you could even leave a review if you wanted. Awesomers around you will appreciate your help. It's only with your participation and sharing that we'll be able to achieve our goals. Our success is literally in your hands. Thank you again for joining us. We are at your service. Find out more about me, Steve Simonson, our guest, team, and all the other awesomers involved at awesomers.com. Thank you again.